to create some more content for you. He's talking about some directors he knows. These are the Teenage Film Snob hiatus shows.
Welcome to Oz, a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighbourhood film snob. Last week we had our Women in Film episode, and today I'm back focusing on an individual director. One of my favourite filmmakers, actually, and it's kind of crazy it's taken so long to get to him. But when I was preparing my list for this episode, I was shocked by how many films this guy has made. I knew there'd be a few because he's worked in a number of genres, mostly action, but has made some kids' films, has made some sci-fi films, even a horror movie or two as well. Most of them with a pretty common theme and tying into his heritage and culture, which I really, really like. There are a couple of films of his I haven't seen, so as you know with the rules, anything that's been a first-time viewing will be ranked lower, and anything I haven't seen won't be counted. There aren't too many of his I haven't seen, but there are a couple. So, we got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to dive straight into it, actually. I'm not going to beat around the bush at all. Today's filmmaker is part of a trio of independent filmmakers who I think really defined the 90s. There are three filmmakers in my mind who had a huge impact, and maybe some of the greatest impacts on the film industry in the 90s, teaching film fans and wannabe directors that you don't need to wait for a studio. You can raise the money yourself and just go out and do it. The first of those filmmakers is Kevin Smith, who I did an episode on already. The second is Quentin Tarantino, who didn't entirely fund his own stuff, but definitely did a lot of writing and kind of pushed his way into the independent scene. And there will be an episode on Tarantino. I did one a long time ago with Jason from former member of Midnight Terrors, current host of Diamonds in the Rough, Strange Diamonds. I can't remember his podcast. Sorry, Jason. I will do another Tarantino film episode soon because I haven't ranked his films before. And the third part to that trilogy or trinity of directors that I think really impacted the 90s and really impacted the modern filmmaking landscape is none other than Robert Rod-riguez. Robert Rod-riguez is a fascinating director. He actually put his body through medical testing in order to raise the money for his debut film, El Mariachi. There's an incredible book he wrote called Rebel Without a Crew. If you've never read it, it's incredible. It's a really wonderful read. He has directed a number of action films, in particular, set in with the backdrop of Mexico. He often comments on, I suppose, the challenges that Mexican people have when trying to move into America and kind of the divide between America and Mexico. He creates these really fantastic, unique characters. His weaponry is very creative as well, using guitar cases, for example, as machine guns and rocket launchers and all that sort of stuff. This guy, of his films, I have seen 16. There are more movies of his I haven't seen, but I can't remember what they are right now, but I haven't seen them, so we will come to them at some point, and hopefully I'll get to watch them. There's one film of his I'll never see. There's a movie he made a couple of years ago called, I want to say it was called Project 100. The idea being that it would be released 100 years from its completion date, so he'll never see the release, the cast will never see the release, the current audience will never see the release of this film, which is kind of cool as well. He's always doing really interesting stuff. He quit the Directors Guild, I think, twice. The first time he quit the Directors Guild was on the set, on the making of Sin City, because he wanted to give Frank Miller a co-directing credit, because he was on set the entire time, and it was a very strict adaptation of the graphic novels, and the Directors Guild only allows one name, so because of that, he quit the Directors Guild. He's just a really interesting guy. He makes, all of his films are a family affair. He puts his kids in them. His wife at the time, early on, was in a few of them, I think, as well. He collaborates a lot with Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if I'll go so far as to say they're best friends, but they appear in each other's films a lot. They made 4 Rooms together. That's one film I won't be talking about today because it's an anthology film with 4 different directors. I'm going to sit it out, but 4 Rooms is excellent. He has brought Quentin Tarantino onto different sets. Quentin Tarantino heavily involved in the making of From Dusk Till Dawn. He co-directed part of Sin City. They co-directed Grindhouse together. Robert Rodriguez, to me, is just one of the most interesting guys in Hollywood. He writes a lot of the scores of his film. He's known to bring a guitar on set and write the music while they're rehearsing and, kind of setting up shots and stuff like that. He is, I think, the first director I watched an R-rated film from. Definitely the first director I bought an R-rated film from. When I was in high school, I was too young to buy R-rated movies, and my mum bought me the El Mariachi trilogy, so I could study those for film class and report on them and have a great time with them. He's a frequent collaborator with certain actors, the greatest or most common being Danny Trejo, but he also worked with Antonio Banderas a lot, Salma Hayek, Jessica Alba. He's a very collaborative guy who tends to work with familiars quite a bit. And he makes really entertaining films. And this was a tough list, because once I got to the top 8, and the only reason I had to wait until the top 8 is because the first 8 I hadn't seen as many times or seen in a while. They were all pretty interchangeable. I knew my number 1 film by Robert Rodriguez going in, but the following 7, on any day of the week, I could swap them around. And I think that's a real testament to some of the filmmakers I'm talking about in this series. More than once I've said that their films could move around because they're just so consistently good. All of these filmmakers. And they make very entertaining films for me, films that I really enjoy. So, I said I was going to jump straight into it, but I've been talking for, I thought it was 15 minutes. It's only been 6 minutes. Okay, good. We're going to dive into the 16 films of Robert Rodriguez that I've seen, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to rank them. Starting in 16th place, the only reason this film is at the bottom is I don't remember it at all. I know I've seen it. I remember watching it. I remember enjoying it. I think James Spader's in it as the villain. But I don't remember much more than that. This film is called Shorts. It's a kid's film. It took place kind of post Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which is another film I haven't seen, so you won't hear me talk about that one today. But pre kind of the new iteration of Spy Kids. And I was watching everything he was putting out, or I thought I was. I was watching as much as I could. And I remember really enjoying it. I believe it's kind of an anthology film for children, if I remember correctly, which ends with kind of a giant kaiju fight or a giant robot fight or something like that. But I just don't remember much about it. I remember basically nothing other than the title, and I think James Spader plays the villain. It was really entertaining when I watched it, 20 years ago, whenever it was, but I just don't remember anything else. So for that reason alone, I'm putting it in last place, in 16th. And for those who are wondering why would I bother mentioning it all if I can't remember it, I just think the quality of story he tells is really interesting, and even though I don't remember it, it's still worth putting in there. And I think he's one of the few filmmakers who's made the jump from kind of mature storytelling or adult storytelling to kid and can jump between the two. I think he works well in both worlds. And I'm not talking about people like Chris Columbus, who's made films for mature audiences and made children's films. I'm talking about creating original IP. He created adult films or adult stories and children's stories, and they both work. And in some cases, they're in a shared universe, which is really fascinating as well. So Shorts, good film. I wish I remembered more of it. But if you can find it, I don't even know if it's available anymore, but if you can find it, go check it out. I've also only seen Shorts once, I should point out. In 15th place is another film I've only seen once. It is Spy Kids 4, All the Time in the World. It features Joel McHale. It features Jessica Alba. I was really excited for this one. I love the Spy Kids franchise. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. I adore it. I think it's a fantastic franchise. But I've only seen this one once, and it didn't really have any of the returning cast, if I remember correctly. And I remember that being a bit of a reason why I didn't latch onto it as much as the original trilogy. I haven't seen it in a long time, and I was definitely going through my snobby phase when I did watch it, so I'm sure there's plenty to enjoy about it. I love Jessica Alba and Joel McHale, so those are two reasons right there. But it's just been a minute since I've seen it, so that's why it's ranking so low. The only reason it ranks higher than Shorts is I remember bits of it. I remember if I remember correctly, Joel McHale plays a want-to-be spy. He thinks he should be a spy. He loves spies. He's been obsessed with spies his entire life, and now he wants to be one. And it turns out, spoilers, he's been married to one the entire time and not even picked up on it. So that's kind of fun. Jumping into number 14 is a more recent film. This one came out, I want to say 2019. It must have been pre-pandemic. Based on a manga, starring, I want to say her name is Rose Salazar and Edward Norton. And this is a movie called Alita Battle Angel. And it's the story of a cyborg or an android girl who is kind of living on the street. She's hiding. She's this weapon. Doesn't really know much about herself. Has kind of no real identity or kind of self-awareness, and gets kind of rescued by, I want to say, like an engineer or something, and slowly assimilates back into life. And then kind of joins this big sports arena to start a rebellion. Is trying to take down, like, it's a very much like a authoritarian government type thing. Again, a long time since I've seen it. I saw this one in theaters though. The visuals are incredible. They're really stunning. And it was a really different flick for Robert Rodriguez because it wasn't really set in the usual locations. It didn't have the same backgrounds. It didn't have the same feel as his other action films. Most of his action films are set in deserts, in, small towns, in front of saloons in Mexico. And this is in this hyper-futuristic reality. It looks nothing like a Rodriguez film. But the action is stunning. It's got that real kind of authentic, what am I trying to say? There's a real sense of nastiness underlying the film. Kind of when you see these films that are set in the future and they're meant to be kind of post-apocalyptic or authoritarian governments and stuff like that, I feel like in America, it's almost played for comedy, so it never feels too unsettling or nasty. But when you see those types of films from other countries, particularly Japanese culture, I find that there's a real level of nastiness and sadism in the people who are kind of in charge. And you feel that in this movie. So despite being a Mexican-American filmmaker, it feels very much what you would feel watching an Asian film. A film from China or Japan or South Korea telling a story like this. And I think that comes down to Rodriguez's attention to the source material and that willingness to honor it and portray it as accurately as possible. Never read the manga, so I don't know much about it. I'd be interested to know what fans of the manga think of the film, but I really enjoyed it. But it is dark and it is pretty messed up. So moving ahead, we have now exhausted the only films of Robert Rodriguez that I've seen once. Moving forward, I've seen all of these multiple times. In some cases, like 10 plus times. I'm a big Rodriguez fan, as I mentioned. So in 13th place is a sequel we were promised and a film that set up another sequel that's yet to be delivered, but I trust Rodriguez. As long as his heart is beating and there's oxygen in his lungs, he will get to it eventually. But this film isn't a franchise that was kind of a joke. I don't think it was ever really, for the longest time, meant to be a series. I don't know. I don't know whether it was demands from the fanship, or maybe once he kind of came up with the idea, Rodriguez was like, yes, one day I will put this character on screen. And I'm talking about the film Machete Kills. So Machete Kills is the sequel to the film Machete, which is based on a fake trailer for Grindhouse. But on top of all of that, Machete in these films is also the same character who appears in the Spy Kids franchise, Uncle Machete, played by Danny Trejo. So Machete Kills stars Danny Trejo in the title role. We've got Mel Gibson as Voz, the villain. I don't remember much of it, and I watched it in the last 12 months. I should remember this movie, but I just don't remember too much of it. I'm getting it confused with the first one. And I just don't remember. All I remember, actually, is that Lady Gaga is in it. She plays a character called the Chameleon, and basically she's kind of an assassin who can shapeshift and shed her skin and become a new person each time. And I think she's only in it for a few minutes. It was a really cool concept. The reason why it's so low is I just think the first Machete is so much better. And not that this is a bad film, but I think the first one also had a lot to say politically. It wasn't just this grindhouse film. It was also making a commentary, and it just sticks in my mind better. You know, it's got an incredible cast, and we'll talk about Machete soon. I feel like we're not off to a great start with this list because I'm just bumbling my way through my memories, but he's got 16 films, and I watch a lot of movies. So let's jump up to number 12, and I think this is going to be the one film that any cinephile, any fellow film snob is going to turn their nose up at me a little bit. I think people are going to feel this film is incredibly low on the list, but I'll explain it. In 12th place, I'm going with Rod-riguez's debut film, El Mariachi. El Mariachi is a film that he made independently. He raised $8,000. He had a turtle, he had a bus, he had a guitar case. He threw them all in and told this story of a gunslinger and a guitarist having a case of mistaken identity. This criminal, kind of underworld crime lord in Mexico mistakes this guitar player for a gunman and ends up kind of like hunting him down, abducting and killing his girlfriend and all these things. And then the guitarist ultimately has to take vengeance upon him. But he was never this, kind of this crazy assassin. It was just a case of mistaken identity. It's a wonderful film. It's a foreign language film. None of it's in English. And considering how low budget it is, and considering the fact that a lot of the performers in the film had never acted professionally before, it's a magic trick of a movie. But it's also why I've put it so low. I think, like, when it comes to auteurs and filmmakers that we love a lot, there's almost this kind of, like, nostalgic reasoning behind elevating the debut film. And I talked about this with Kevin Smith. Clerks is a great film, and I did put it in the top 3, to be fair. But your first film shouldn't be your best film. If your first movie is your best film, then what are you doing with your next film? Like, what are you kind of missing? What have you not built on, And, there's the argument to be made that some filmmakers sell out, and so the debut film is their true voice and the voice of an artist, and then they sell out and they kind of make these popcorn films for studios and stuff like that. And I understand that, but even in that situation, Quentin Tarantino makes studio films. Kevin Smith makes studio films. Rod-riguez makes studio films. Like, they're not raising the money independently anymore. All 3 of them, after the first film, got deals and became part of the studio system, but they were still telling the stories they wanted to tell. So I love El Mariachi. I think it's fantastic. I'm just putting it a little bit lower, a lot lower, I guess, because I think his career continued to grow and build, and he told more interesting stories, and with the tools and the teams required, he was able to tell the scope of stories he wanted to tell. So I'm putting El Mariachi at 12th place, but again, like, none of these are bad movies. These are all wonderful films. Now, with movies 11, 10, and 9, I'll talk about all 3 of them at once. The reason I'm grouping them together, they're not being ranked in any particular order. I just haven't seen them in over 15 years. I loved them as a kid. I loved them as a teenager. I'm sure I would love them now. It's just been a long time. So in the position of 11th, 10th, and 9th are Spy Kids, Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams, and Spy Kids 3, Game Over. The original Spy Kids was a revolution. I remember seeing the trailer for this film and, like, audiences being excited, just this incredible looking film. And I didn't know anything about film at the time. I didn't know about directors. I didn't know about actors. But you've got Antonio Banderas, in the lead role. And he's this super spy, and then he gets captured and his kids have to come and save him. Like, what a great idea for a film. You've got Danny Trejo, as I mentioned, as Uncle Machete. You've got... I want to remember this cast, so give me a second while I bring them all up. And there are people listening who are like, you meant to love these films. Why can't you remember all the cast members? It is like... I'm very tired. I've got a lot going on, but I'm getting there. You've got... oh my goodness, the guy played Nightcrawler. Why am I sorry? Alan Cumming as the villain, as Floop. Floop's Fooglies, and he has the giant hands, with the giant thumb people who, like, do all of his work for him. You got Alexa Vega. You got Daryl Sabara. Those are your titular Spy Kids. Is it Carla Gugino as the mum? Yeah, Carla Gugino. What a great movie. And it's basically a James Bond film. Like your gadget guy, Felix, played by Cheech Marin. Who would have thought that the guy from Cheech and Chong would be in a kids' film? And it's just the story of these kids going undercover to save their parents. And it's entertaining, and it's fun, and the action is good, and the science fiction element is great. It's been a long time since I've watched it, so it might have aged poorly. But I really liked it, and I liked that they leaned into the silliness of it. You know, there's a moment where they're in a submarine underwater, and Junie, the younger child, the son, played by Daryl Sabara, he has to go to the toilet, and when he flushes, it says it's flushing his poo. I'm like, what a great joke. Like, there's not enough poo jokes in kids' movies. I really liked it. Number 2, I also really like. Number 2 is very creative. The Spy Kids have to go to this island where Steve Buscemi has been living, and he created these weird hybrid creatures, like a monkey with a spider. And there was a game out at the time on the PC, I can't remember what it's called, but you could create your own hybrid creatures and you can mix animals together. My friend Josh, who's been on the podcast, would remember this one. He's probably screaming down the speaker because I can't remember. But the cast returns. It's exactly the same cast, but as I said, you now have Steve Buscemi. But Steve Buscemi isn't really the villain. I can't remember who the real villain is, but it's not really Steve Buscemi. He's misunderstood, and he's actually been retired and hiding away. And then the third one I think is the most underrated. I just realized there's a 5th Spy Kids film I haven't seen called Spy Kids Armageddon. There you go. Spy Kids 3D Game Over has got a 4.4 on IMDb, which is insane to me. I love the idea of the Spy Kids splitting up. The film opens and they don't work together anymore. Junie now is like a private detective. He doesn't do his spy work anymore. They're reluctantly forced back together because Sylvester Stallone has created this game that they have to enter. And the whole movie is them trapped in a video game trying to save the world. As I mentioned, Sylvester Stallone as your villain. Like, what a great get for a kids movie. Salma Hayek is in it. Elijah Wood has a fantastic cameo. And this was Elijah Wood coming off Lord of the Rings. Like, this was in 2003, I want to say. So he's just, given one of the greatest performances of his life. Definitely the most recognizable. And he's in these Spy Kids films. I love the franchise. I haven't watched it in a long, long time. But I think I can probably start showing my kid. She's starting to get old enough to appreciate films like that. So maybe I'll have to crack them out, and then maybe my ranking will change. But currently, I'm happy to put the Spy Kids franchise in 11th, 10th, and 9th. They're really fun. I loved them as a kid. I just found them so entertaining. And as an adult, I love that it's the same machete that's swinging around on intestines in another movie. I think that's a really great little reference. Coming in at 8th place. And now we're really getting to the interchangeables. The first 8, as I mentioned, I don't remember as well. I haven't seen in a little while. It's hard to rank. But from 8 to 1 or 8 to 2, any day of the week I would swap these films around. It's so interesting. I was like, it's going to take us so long to record this episode. I know we're 25 minutes in, but with Kevin Smith and Zack Snyder, I feel like I talked about 2 movies at this stage. So we're moving a little bit quicker. In 8th place is the conclusion of the trilogy that he's most well known for. And I'm talking about, of course, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. The first time I watched Once Upon a Time in Mexico, I didn't really like it. I didn't really get it because the characters I fell in love with in Desperado, even though they weren't in the first movie, or they kind of were, but not the way we know them from Desperado, it wasn't really a story about them. Like, it's hard to explain Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Like, it is about them, but not really. It's a lot of hearsay. You're not really sure if they're alive or not. They show up, but not in the main storyline. It's more the mythology of them that's being told. But even if you take them out of it, if you take Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek out of Once Upon a Time in Mexico, it's a great action flick. You've got Johnny Depp, who at that point was coming off Pirates of the Caribbean. So he's already big. Like, he was big, and then Pirates, he blew up. Like, if you don't remember, or you weren't here for Pirates of the Caribbean when it first came out, oh my God, like, Johnny Depp became the household name. Previously, you know, he was known for Edward Scissorhands, maybe Ed Wood, if you were, you know, into the more artsy films and stuff like that. 21 Jump Street, maybe, but this was next level. So him coming into this was huge for people. Eva Mendes shows up. Eva Mendes previously had done Too Fast, Too Furious. You've got Mickey Rourke, who I think he's meant to be playing a Mexican guy. There's a weird casting in this one. No, Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe's the weird casting. Willem Dafoe is heavily tanned and doing a Mexican accent, and probably shouldn't be. But it's Willem Dafoe, so you kind of like, I guess he could be Mexican. The story of this film, honestly, doesn't even really matter. Like, there's a bunch of FBI stuff going on. They're trying to investigate what's going on in Mexico. Willem Dafoe's a crime boss. They're trying to take him down. Mickey Rourke may or may not be a mole. And there's this whole other story about, like, whatever happened to Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. But it's a great flick. It's a really good action film. Robert Rodriguez might direct some of the best Western action films in the world. Really entertaining. So much fun. And this one's pretty brutal as well. Like, there's an image on the poster of Johnny Depp with his sunglasses on, and he has some, like, dark lines coming out below the sunglasses, and I thought it was meant to be war paint. Spoilers for a 20-year-old film. He gets his eyeballs ripped out of his skull, and that's blood. And they put that on the poster that anyone could see. Like, if you walked through your cinema in 2003 and you were 6 years old, you would see that poster. Like, that is insane. But also, it's a really fun action film. All right. In 7th place, speaking of fun action films, speaking of swinging from intestines, speaking of interconnectivity between franchises, Machete. Machete was first introduced to us as the character we know him to be through Grindhouse. Quentin Tarantino directed Death Proof. Robert Rodriguez directed Planet Terror. They knocked the two films together, made a bunch of fake trailers, and they recreated the 42nd Street exploitation film experience. I talked about that a little bit the other day with the Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie? No. Thanksgiving, Eli Roth. So many of the filmmakers I love worked on that film in some way or other. We're getting to Edgar Wright. I've just got to wait for that documentary to show up, and then I'll talk about Edgar Wright. But Rodriguez made one as well. He wanted to put a spotlight on Danny Trejo, so he made a trailer for a film about the Mexican assassin called Machete. And the way he kills people is with a big machete. He rides a motorcycle. He's got a bunch of huge knives, and he just hacks people up. And that was the trailer. And then years later, he made the movie. The film stars Jeff Fahey, as I want to say, the governor. I think, if I remember correctly, Robert De Niro is in it. Steven Seagal, before he moved to Russia or wherever he lives now. Lindsay Lohan is in the film. And basically, Machete is hired by an American government agency to assassinate the governor. But it's meant to be a fake assassination. I mean, he doesn't know that. And then they blame it on him, and the whole idea is they want to lock Mexicans out from Texas. And so they start this international incident, and then everyone's hunting Machete. And he's got a few friends who are trying to help him out. Michelle Rodriguez leads a revolution. She's called Luz, if I remember correctly, and she works in a taco truck, but she's really a revolutionary trying to, like, take down the American government. Jessica Alba plays an FBI agent who's investigating Machete. It's insane. Just totally insane. But everything they showed you in that trailer, they deliver on and more, and it's an incredible watch. Not for everyone, but boy, if you like gory action, and naked women, because there's a lot of that in the movie as well. It is an absolute blast. I kind of wish when they released Grindhouse, they had have done Planet Terror and Machete back to back. Not that I don't like Death Proof. I love Death Proof, but I feel like they would have been a better fit. But anyway, Machete, great flick, and so worth your time. Jumping in at 6th, and this might be the second shocker of the list. If El Mariachi is considered way too low, I think a lot of people are going to think this is way too high, but I really like this film. I think it's underappreciated, and it is the long-awaited sequel to Sin City. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. Rod-riguez, when he made the first one, he always planned on adapting all of them. I think the first one, whilst a critical success, was not a financially big hit, so he had to wait a little while to go ahead and make the sequel, but it could also have to do with the Weinsteins and Dimension and all the different, and Miramax and all that sort of stuff, because there's a lot, and like I'm not talking about the criminal aspect of the Weinstein company, I'm talking about the financial aspect and how the studios changed names and stuff a lot, so I'm not sure why it took so long. This one follows up a few years later. I can't remember how long it's been. Clive Owen is not back as Dwight because he's now got a new face. No. They play around with time a lot. Clive Owen is the new face in the first one. His character in this is a flashback story played by Josh Brolin. Eva Green plays, I want to say, Ava Lord, if I remember correctly. We have Mickey Rourke back again as Marv. Bruce Willis does make an appearance as Hardigan through flashbacks and visions. Jessica Alba is back as Nancy. Miho has been recast. I can't remember who played her previously, but I think Jamie Chung replaced her, if I remember correctly. Why am I struggling? I really liked the girl who played Miho in the original one. Devon Aoki, I think it was, who played Miho originally. Rosario Dawson's back. And we don't have Michael Clarke Duncan. A number of the cast members actually passed away. We've also got Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Christopher Lloyd. And I think the Joseph Gordon-Levitt story is actually new. I don't remember it being in the graphic novels. I think it was created for this particular film. If you've seen the first one, you know everything you need to know going to this one. This one, I think, is incredibly underrated. I saw it with Nick Owen, my co-host. We saw it when we worked together. One night I finished work a little bit early because I was unwell. I had a bit of a rest, and then we went and saw this and really enjoyed it. Visually, it's stunning. It looks as good as the first one. The cast is really good. I think the story is really underrated. Christopher Maloney shows up as well for a little bit. I think the late, great Michael Madsen is in it for a little bit also. It's just as violent and gory and silly as the first one, and with the exception of the new story, it is pretty much shot for shot what those books are. And again, that comes down to Rodriguez's meticulous attention to detail and wanting to honour the source material. I talked about in a previous episode how I said Zack Snyder's Watchmen is maybe the most accurate comic book film of all time. I think Sin City may have a beat just by a little bit. But anyway, that's Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. I really like it. I think it's really underrated. I think more people should check it out, to be honest. It's a good old time at the movies. In 5th place, I didn't even know I ranked this movie that high, but when I was working out the list, this made the most sense to me. It's a film that was written, I think Quentin Tarantino wrote it, or at least helped write it, but he definitely stars in it. From 1995, it's From Dusk Till Dawn. Tarantino and Rodriguez wanted to work together. They wanted to create a horror film, but they were getting sick of the 80s and 90s horror films that didn't let you care about the characters. They liked that these films were violent slashes and tore everyone up, but they just felt they didn't care enough about the characters because you didn't get enough time with them. So they made a mission to create a film that fixed that problem. So From Dusk Till Dawn is their commentary on everything what they deemed wrong with horror and how they tried to redeem it. And it's fascinating because it is two very different films sewn together. Harvey Keitel is a father of a couple of children. His wife has passed away and they're driving through Texas. I think Texas, and they get to the border. His daughter, played by Juliette Lewis, and his adopted son, I can't remember the actor's name, come across these notorious criminals, the Gecko brothers, played by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino. The opening scene is them knocking off a liquor store. They do a hold-up gone wrong. Michael Parks, who I mentioned from Red State and Tusk, is there. He plays Earl McGraw. We'll talk about him more in the Quentin Tarantino episode. And they cross paths, and then they basically hijack this motorhome, this caravan, and they're basically like, we're going to hold you hostage until we get across the border, and once we're free and clear, you'll be free to go. You'll never see us again, and we're going to retire in Mexico. And they get to this bar saloon in Mexico called the Titty Twister, of all places, and it looks like this kind of like weird motorcycle hangout, and they're all these pretty tough guys and bad crooks. Cheech Marin's there again, Danny Trejo's there again, Tom Savini, the visual effects artist who created more visual blood gags and monster masks than you can name. He plays a character called Sex Machine. So they're all there, and then they find out it's actually... that's the first half of the film, just getting to the Titty Twister. And then when night falls, it's revealed that it's not just another bike club, it's not just another saloon, it's owned by vampires. And the vampires have locked them in so they can just have their way with them and kill them and eat them. And the lead vampire, Santanico Pandemonium, is played by Salma Hayek. Again, repeat offender. A lot of the same actors showing up again and again and again. If this sounds familiar, you haven't seen this film, but it sounds like something you might have seen before. You might be thinking of Sinners from this year. Sinners borrows heavily from Dusk Till Dawn. There's also a TV show, which I never really watched, but apparently it's quite good. But it's just really fun. I remember showing it to my friend Josh for the first time, and the bit that moment he fell in love with the film was in the third act when all the vampires come out. There's a band on stage, this rock band playing music, and then when they turn into vampires, they're still playing, but the instruments have been replaced by body parts. So there's a guitar made out of like arms and legs and stuff. And there was that moment that I think the film won him over. It's insane, like most Rod-riguez films are. It's just absolutely crazy. It's crazy that a studio was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make this movie. But they did, and it's wonderful, and it's really fun and violent, and if you haven't seen it, you need to get onto it because it's a great time as well. I feel like every film I finish by saying it's a great time, but it is. In fourth place is a film that I think is has equal billing for the least Rod-riguez film I've ever seen. Alita Battle Angel definitely doesn't feel like a Rod-riguez film. It feels very different. And I would say this one too, and it's 1998's sci-fi horror, The Faculty. I remember being really excited to see The Faculty because it had a lot of similarities with a book series I liked as a kid called Animorphs. Animorphs, if you're not familiar with it, 5 teenagers encounter an alien who gives them the power to change into any animal they like. That's not what's similar. That doesn't show up in The Faculty at all. But the thing that is similar is that their main villain, the alien threat they're trying to prevent, the invasion by this alien race called the Yerks. And they're these slugs that enter your ear and possess you and take over your brain. And the aliens in this film are a lot like that as well. This is a crazy film. The cast is bonkers. You've got Jordana Brewster, Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett, Claire Duvall. You got Robert Patrick, Salma Hayek, Jon Stewart. The woman who plays Frasier's ex-wife, I've forgotten her name at the moment, but she's in it. It is just chock-a-block, wall-to-wall, incredible cast. And it just happens to be the least Robert Rodriguez film you've ever seen. I think with the exception of Salma Hayek, it might be the whitest cast he's ever used as well. Usher is another one. He's in it as well. But it's great. These 5 kids or 6 kids start to notice that things are a bit weird. Things aren't quite adding up. The teachers are acting unusual. What's this called? George Costanza's boss from the construction company is also in the film as one of the teachers. But they notice there's something going on and the kids are starting to act strange, and then they discover this kind of threat, this plot. And of course no one believes them because their kids talking about aliens, so why would anyone believe them? And it's an M for us in Australia. I don't know whether it must have got an R in America. Yeah, it would have. There's so much cursing. It has to be an R. But if you're in Australia and you're 15 or younger, you can watch it technically. It's only an M. I think it was a 15 in the UK as well. But it's pretty bloody, There's some melting body parts and people losing limbs and getting stabbed in the eye and in the hand and all sorts of stuff. And the way they prevent the aliens, the way they stop the aliens from taking over, is they drug them. Josh Hartnett is a drug manufacturer and dealer. He's actually this real science whiz, but people kind of only know him as a burnout. Famke Janssen, also in the film, sorry. And he manufactures this drug that kind of rots them from the inside out, and that's how they stop them. But it's a really fun alien invasion film, and there's nothing quite like it. It's very slick and stylish, very 90s. But again, like really just a great little thriller. Like, yeah, it's insane. What a great movie. I really like The Faculty. Which means we're getting down to the pointy end. That's a phrase I use a lot when I'm ranking movies. In third place, and again, these could all be interchangeable at any time, as I mentioned, except for number one. In third place is the movie that inspired the Machete films. It is Planet Terror. It's one half of Grindhouse. I remember when Grindhouse was announced, losing my mind. I was really into film at this point. I'd just gotten into film, and I couldn't believe that two different directors would make two different movies and then release them together. It just didn't make sense to me. And I was a big Quentin Tarantino film. I would have been in film class, not film school, but film class. I would have been 16, 17 years old. And we had this assignment where we had to watch a bunch of films from a director we liked and then write an essay about it. And everyone wanted Quentin Tarantino. Everyone wanted him. He was the hot thing. And Tarantino had only just done Kill Bill 2 at this point. So he's only 4, I guess 5 if you want to count the Kill Bill films as separate films. I don't, but you can if you want. He was only 5 films in. He hadn't done Inglourious Bastards. He hadn't done Hateful Eight. He hadn't done Django. So he was still, even though he'd been around for over 10 years, he was still quite shallow into his career. And I knew I would never win an argument with someone for Tarantino. So I looked to the trailers and I looked at what was out. And I saw Sin City was coming. I had no idea what Sin City was, but it looked cool. And so I started researching Rod-riguez, and this is how I fell in love with him, and I watched his films. And then a couple of years later, once I was in uni, I didn't know I didn't know where to watch Grindhouse. They didn't release it in many mainstream theaters. I wasn't going to the movies that much, except for with Tina. So I had to wait until they were released on DVD. And I bought both DVDs and watched them in one night. And I liked Death Proof, but I loved Planet Terror. And Tina even bought me the script book of Planet Terror that year. A book I still refer to a lot, and it was the book that taught me how to write screenplays. And Planet Terror is just insane. It's this, and that's a word I've been using as well. Like, Robert Rodriguez is insane. He makes insane movies. He makes incredibly marketable exploitation films that should not work. These are films that should not grab a mainstream audience. But they're just brilliant. They're fun and action-packed and violent and crazy and sexy and should not work at all. So I apologize for using the word crazy and insane so much, but that is Rodriguez in a nutshell. He just makes crazy movies. I'm going to try not to use it again, but I probably will. Planet Terror begins with the US government coming to this facility, and it turns out they were on a mission, and in their mission they killed Osama bin Laden. At this point in the world, Osama bin Laden had not been killed. He was still alive. But as part of their exploitation film, they made it that he had. Quentin Tarantino would do something similar later by killing Hitler in Inglourious Bastards. So they get to this facility, and it turns out they're exposed to this kind of pathogen, which makes their skin bubble and pus and mutate and stuff like that. And they're trying to find a cure, and they accidentally release this pathogen into the town, and it turns them more crazy. It turns them more wild. They're not zombies. They're probably closer to the rage virus carriers in 28 Days Later, but they're not as fast and aggressive, and they're really goopy. Goopy is a good word. So we follow that, and that group is led by Bruce Willis. So he's the head of the military people that are trying to stop the virus initially and then get really infected. Then we have a story about Marley Shelton and Josh Brolin. They're a married couple. They're both doctors. But she wants to leave him. She's not actually attracted to him. She's not actually even straight. She identifies as lesbian. And she's trying to break up with him and take her son with her because she finds her husband dangerous. Then we have a storyline about Cherry. Cherry is played by Rose McGowan. Cherry is a dancer, a go-go dancer. And during the events of an attack, she loses her leg. And she gets fitted later with a machine gun that kind of comes onto the thigh. Then we have the story of Rod-riguez, who plays an ex-lover of Cherry, and he also is ex-military, and no one wants him around because he's a guy with a bad past. But then, through missing reels that never show up in the film, it's explained that he's actually a bit of a hero. Then we've got Jeff Fahey's story, who plays a barbecue guy who's trying to make the best barbecue sauce in town, and stuff in Texas and stuff like that. Then we've got the story of Fergie from Black Eyed Peas, who's trying to, who is the girlfriend of Marley Shelton, trying to get her out. And then amongst all of this zombie plague unleashes, and it's really gory, really gross. Like, there's so much like pus and blood and bubbles, and there's so much practical stuff because Rod-riguez loves practical effects. There's some digital stuff as well, but it's very, very practical. A lot of like bubbling skin and oozing and pussing and just the words that make you feel really sick. And it kind of culminates with this huge like fight in a military space, and they're trying to get out of there, and Cherry starts doing her go-go dancing with machine gun leg and taking out zombies left and right, and it's just bonkers. I think it's probably his most bonkers film. I think looking over all of his movies, Planet Terror is the one that's truly the most insane. And that's saying something, because we've got Machete on this list, and we've got From Dusk Till Dawn, but I think Planet Terror takes the win. So if you have not seen Planet Terror, get on it. Get on it, even if you can only watch it by itself. If you watch it on its own, you might get a chance to see the extended cut. The extended cut's very good, but the theatrical cut's really good as well. The extended cut honestly puts a lot of the stuff they deliberately cut out. The intention of Grindhouse was that they were going to make these films that were missing reels, that had damaged prints, because when you go to a Grindhouse theatre, the version of the film you're watching is not the cleanest reel anymore. It's been damaged, it's dirty, they've lost pieces of the film due to like, you know, mishandling and stuff like that. So they were trying to replicate that experience. In second place is the film that inspired me to research Robert Rod-riguez. It's the film Sin City. That was the first movie I ever saw by myself. I remember saying to my mum one night, I was like, no one's going to see this film with me. My friends think it looks too weird. It's too violent for my brother and sister to come along. You don't want to see it. Can you just drive me to a theatre so I can see this movie? And my mum said yes. And she drove me to Airport West, to the Westfield Super 8, or whatever it was called. There were 8 theatres there. And I bought a solo ticket to Sin City, and I sat in by myself, and there were maybe 3 of us in there. And it was the first time I'd seen a movie by myself, and I loved it. It was the best feeling ever, going to the movie by myself. It's crazy that I awakened that at age 16, and it would take me almost 20 years to do that on the regular, because now I see movies by myself all the time. But at that point, I wasn't doing it that much. And it made me read the books. My dad bought me all 7 graphic novels for Christmas, and I devoured them like just one a night. Just like fell in love with these incredible stories, you know, by Frank Miller. I talked about Frank Miller on a previous episode for some reason. I can't remember why I talked about him now. Because of Batman vs Superman. And as much as I like what Frank Miller did with the character of Daredevil and Batman and Elektra and all those characters, seeing something uniquely his, something that he created on his own, and kind of embracing the serial noir style of, you know, kind of the golden era, but with a modern kind of influence of violence and gore and humor. It just works so well. And at that time, that was my favorite movie. I bought it on DVD opening day. I got it in a steelbook, but not the steelbooks we know today. The steelbook was different. It was a steel case that went over your DVD and it protected your DVD. I've still got it in my house somewhere. it was my favorite movie. It defined me for a long time. I had Sin City posters on my walls. When I went to uni, there was this store that would sell movie posters, and I got a door poster of Jessica Alba as Nancy Callahan, and stuck it to the back of my door, which was probably the most teenage boy thing I ever did. Like, if you watch movies, especially in the 80s, teenage boys tend to have, like, half-naked or completely naked women post all over their room. This was the closest I got. She was in the lingerie from the film. So it was, it was steamy, but it wasn't too inappropriate. But I just adored this flick, and I just rewatched it a couple of months ago, and it just holds up incredibly well. Carla Gugino is amazing in it. Mickey Rourke is fantastic in it. Bruce Willis is excellent. Michael Madsen, Clive Owen, Elijah Wood. Every single person in this movie is amazing. Rosario Dawson, Benicio del Toro, the late, how am I forgetting her name because I love her so much? Brittany Murphy is so good. It's something to behold. And I remember when it finally came out on DVD, I was in the video, so I was recommending it to everyone. And the feedback I got from everyone who did the hire was, that was too weird. And I remember being like, did I miss something? Did I get it wrong? Have I misunderstood this film? And it's just that I think it's a film that people weren't ready for. I think now, if Sin City was released, people would lose their minds. And I hope people are still discovering this film. If you haven't seen Sin City and you're listening to this, please, of all the movies, put Sin City on, because it changed my life. In a very different way to the way Clerks changed my life. Like, Clerks changed my life, but Sin City changed my life in terms of what film could be. So you should definitely check out Sin City. And that's going to bring me to my number one. If you're familiar with the work of Robert Rod-riguez, you know what I haven't talked about yet. You know the missing piece. This could only be the number one film. This, to me, is his best film. It's his most entertaining. I think it's his most accessible for mature audiences. Obviously, Spy Kids is accessible for all audiences, but I think this really is accessible for all audiences, or all adult audiences, and it's Desperado. Desperado is one of the coolest, sexiest, romantic, most action-packed films in history. And I never hear people talk about it. It goes under the radar way too much. Desperado is the sequel to El Mariachi. We follow the mariachi, played by Antonio Banderas, and opens with this incredible musical number, which I have the song on my Spotify, and I play it for my kid because my kid loves the music. And he's trying to get revenge on the man, Bucho, who killed his girlfriend from the first film. But now he is an assassin. Now he has the ability to use guns and fight. And he's got a friend played by Steve Buscemi, who goes around kind of building the lore, telling the tale of the mariachi with the guitar case full of guns, trying to find Bucho and get his revenge. Cheech Marin plays a bartender. You've got Selma Hayek as the bookstore owner. You've got, he's not Machete, but Danny Trejo plays up as another guy who throws knives. And it's just this great revenge story about this man with a broken heart, and he can't play guitar anymore because he was shot in the hand. And just him navigating this small city, trying to finally get revenge. The action scenes are incredible, like the use of color and lighting and the soundtrack. And then you've got Quentin Tarantino, who makes a cameo, and he's really great in that moment as well, and he plays like a known associate of Butcher. There's the training montage of the new guy who gets hired to join Butcher's gang and how he kind of joins them. We have the introduction of the mariachi's friends, who have different guitar cases full of guns and stuff like that as well. It's really fun. It's a great action film, but I don't think, in the 90s, a lot of action films were kind of advertised and geared towards men, and yes, this is a very male-dominant film, and a lot of men will like this, but this is a great action film for women as well. It doesn't hold off on the romance and the love, and yes, it's sexy, and there are moments where it does get a little bit mature and a little bit adult, but in a very romantic way. It's incredible. And yes, it's his second film, and I know before I said that earlier works shouldn't necessarily be ranked high because the filmmakers should grow. But Desperado stuns. I was going to say it's a magic trick, but I use that phrase too often. But everything he wanted to do with El Mariachi, we see in Desperado. And it's incredible. So there we go. Those are 16 incredible films by an incredible filmmaker. I encourage everyone to watch as much Robert Rodriguez as possible. He's just an incredible storyteller. And a filmmaker that I think a lot of people sleep on, unfortunately. So I'll do the ranking again in reverse order from 16 to 1, and then we'll get out of here. And then next week we'll have another great show for you. So in 16th place, we have Shorts. 15th place, Spy Kids 4, All the Time in the World. Alita Battle Angel is in 14th. Machete Kills in 13th. El Mariachi in the controversial 12th place. Then 11, 10, and 9 are Spy Kids 2, Island of Lost Dreams, and Spy Kids 3, Game Over. I haven't really put them in any specific order. I've just read them out in release order. In 8th place, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Machete steals 7th place. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For in the potentially controversial 6th place. From Dusk Till Dawn in 5th place. And then 4 of my favourite films of all time. In 4th place, The Faculty. 3rd place, Planet Terror. Sin City in 2nd place. But of course, Desperado had to be number 1. What a great list. What a great list of films. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't watch a lot of movies each week, that will keep you going for almost half a year. So dive into the world of Robert Rodriguez. I don't know who I'm going to talk about next. I might go to Tarantino. If I get the Edgar Wright documentary before I record my next episode, we might go to him. Or maybe we'll go into some, I don't know, maybe we'll go European. But we'll see. We'll figure it all out. Thanks for listening and supporting the show during the hiatus period. I appreciate it. Keep sending your messages, comments, likes, and we'll be back to normal. We must be in close to the end of my hiatus. I'm not quite sure. I've lost track of how many I've recorded, but we've got to be at least halfway through the hiatus at this stage. But thank you all again, and we'll talk soon. But as I say on this show every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.